When we think of the great legends of the Third Age, our minds often drift to the flash of Anduril in the sun, the terrifying shadow of the Nazgul, or the quiet courage of a hobbit on a lonely road. We sing of the pale enchanted gold of the dwarves and the silver blossoms of the elves, yet behind these high tales lies a foundation of cold, hard logistics. Empires are not built on songs alone. They are sustained by trade routes, agricultural surpluses, and industrial output. Welcome to Echoes of Middle-earth, where today we are pulling back the curtain on the Material Arda to explore the unseen economic systems that shaped Middle-earth's great empires. From the toy markets of Dale to the slave-worked fields of Lake Núrnen, we will discover how the movement of goods and the hunger for resources drove the history of the world just as surely as the will of the Valar.
To understand the economics of Middle-earth, we must first look at the masters of the material world, the dwarves of Durin's folk. While the elves are often depicted as self-sufficient and detached, the dwarves were a people defined by interdependence and traffic. Thorin Oakenshield provides us with a rare glimpse into the specialized economy of the kingdom under the mountain. In the good days of Erebor, the dwarves did not bother to grow their own food or find it for themselves. Instead, they functioned as an industrial powerhouse, leveraging their marvelous and magical skills in metalwork to create a massive trade deficit with the surrounding men.
This led to the creation of the toy market of Dale, which was the wonder of the North. Here, the dwarves traded high-value manufactured goods, not just weapons and armor, but intricate mechanical toys and carvings for the basic necessities of life. Kings of men would send for dwarven smiths and reward even the least skillful most richly. Fathers would actually pay the dwarves to take their sons as apprentices, often paying in food supplies. This created a symbiotic relationship. The dwarves provided the technological and luxury assets, while the men of Dale and the Long Lake provided the agricultural base. When Smaug destroyed Erebor, he didn't just kill a king, he collapsed an entire regional trade network, turning a merry town into a long desolation. The dwarven economic model was consistent throughout the ages. In the First Age, we see a similar pattern of mercantilism in Beleriand. The dwarves of Nagrod and Belegost traded their unmatched skill in stone and steel for the resources of the elves. Most notably, the traffic of the dwarf mines in the Blue Mountains passed through the hands of Caranthir, a son of Feanor. Caranthir, though haughty, was a shrewd administrator who realized that by controlling the roads and the flow of trade, he could amass great riches. Even the great elven king Thingol had to engage in this spiritual material exchange. To build the 1,000 caves of Menegroth, Thingol hired the dwarves of Belegost, paying them not in gold, which they cared less for in those early days, but in fair pearls provided by Círdan the shipwright. One pearl, Nymphalos, was as great as a dove's egg and was prized by the dwarf chieftain above a mountain of wealth. While the dwarves focused on industry, the High Elves practiced what we might call an aesthetic economy. Their wealth was often concentrated in singular high-value artifacts like the Silmarils or the Rings of Power, items that functioned more as spiritual capital than currency. However, even they were subject to the laws of resource management. In the Second Age, the elven smiths of Eregion established a close friendship with the dwarves of Moria, precisely because of their eagerness for knowledge and rare materials. The mithril economy is perhaps the most fascinating example of a precious metal driving geopolitical history. Found only in Moria, this true silver was 10 times the value of gold. It was the foundation of the dwarves' wealth, yet it was also their destruction. Their greedy and deep delving for this finite resource ultimately disturbed Durin's bane. By the end of the Third Age, mithril was beyond price because the supply had been cut off by a demon and the existing hoard had been largely stolen and given as tribute to Sauron. The transition from the Second to the Third Age is marked by the rise and fall of the Númenórean maritime hegemony. In their youth, the men of Westerness were bringers of gifts and teachers. They brought corn and wine to the weak and fearful men of Middle-earth, instructing them in the sowing of seed and the hewing of wood. This was an era of economic aid that built a foundation of goodwill. However, as the shadow fell on Númenor, their economic policy shifted from altruism to extractive colonialism. They began to build great harbors and strong towers on the shores of Middle-earth, appearing now as lords and masters and gatherers of tribute. Their ships returned to Númenor ever laden with wealth, while they hunted the men of Middle-earth for goods and slaves.
This system of tribute reached its peak under Ar-Pharazôn the Golden, whose pride was fueled by a wealth uncounted that Sauron promised lay in the east and west. Even after the downfall, the remnants of this system persisted in the realms of Gondor and Arnor. Gondor, in its height, was a land of high towers, strong places, and havens of many ships. Their economy was built on the control of the Anduin, the great river, which served as the primary artery for trade from the northwest to the sea. However, as the blood of Númenor became mingled with that of lesser men, the empire fell into dotage, and its cities began to lack the men required to maintain them. By the time of the War of the Ring, Minas Tirith was falling year by year into decay, a city with empty windows and silent halls that could no longer sustain half the population it was built for. In stark contrast to these decaying empires stood the localized agrarian utopia of the Shire. The Hobbit economy was defined by peace and plenty and a distinct lack of centralized government. Families managed their own affairs, and growing food occupied most of their time. Yet they were not entirely isolated. The Shire was a district of well-ordered business. They had estates, farms, workshops, and small trades that remained unchanged for generations. Their primary export, though they may not have viewed it as such, was pipeweed. Tobald Hornblower of Longbottom was the first to grow the true pipeweed in his gardens in the year 1070. This weed eventually traveled far abroad, even ending up in the cellars of Isengard.
The presence of Longbottom leaf in Isengard reveals the dark side of Shire economics, the black market. Saruman, despite his mind of metal and wheels, had secret dealings with someone in the Shire to obtain the comforts he desired. This suggests that even in a land as sheltered as the Shire, the many eyes of the enemy were looking for economic vulnerabilities. The late-stage corruption of the Shire under Sharkey, Saruman, was essentially an economic restructuring. He replaced the hobbits' well-farmed countryside with huts and long, low, drab buildings, turning a land of cabbages and potatoes into an industrial wasteland for his own profit.
Finally, we must look at the industrial war economy of Mordor. Sauron was the ultimate orderer, a being who valued knowledge, rule, order through a mind of metal and wheels. The logistics of Mordor were staggering. While the northward regions were dedicated to mines and forges and the musterings of long-planned war, the empire was fed by great slave-worked fields in the south beyond the fumes of Mount Doom, by the dark, sad waters of Lake Núrnen. Mordor functioned as a command economy, where long wagon trains of goods and booty were brought in from tributary lands in the east and south. Sauron's power was spread not just through fear, but through the gathering of fierce, ironclad armies who were paid in the spoils of conquered realms. The War of the Ring was, in many ways, a clash between the organic economies of the West and the industrial economy of the East. Sauron weighed all things to a nicety in the scales of his malice, measuring everything by the desire for power. He assumed that everyone followed his own economic logic, that those who held the One Ring would use it to set themselves up as a new power to order the world as they willed. He could not comprehend an economy of pity or sacrifice, where a treasure of immeasurable value would be destroyed rather than traded or wielded. As we conclude our exploration of these unseen systems, we see that the history of Middle-earth is a complex web of apprenticeships, trade agreements, and resource struggles. The roads that go ever on were not just for wandering poets, they were for the laden wains of merchants and the black ships of tribute takers. The empires of the elder days may have passed into song, but their echoes remain in the very stones of the dolven halls and the green mounds of forgotten cities. Reminders that even in a world of magic, someone had to mine the gold and someone had to grow the corn.
Thank you for joining us for this economic deep dive on Echoes of Middle-earth. If you found this look at the logistics of Arda fascinating, please like and subscribe as we continue to unearth the hidden truths and profound histories of Tolkien's magnificent world. Until the stars shine again on our meeting, may your harvests be plenty and your trade be fair.